Johnversations podcast. This is episode 14, and I am super excited for my guest today. A huge influence on me growing up, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the show. Formerly of Edison Clio, Game Boy Girl, Beekeeper. Latest project is Desert Sharks. They have a new record out that's called Baby's Gold Death Stadium. Super happy to have you, Miss Stephanie Gunther. Thank you so much for Skyping in with us and doing the episode. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really impressed that you know of all those obscure bands that I've been in. So thank
you. We were talking a little bit before the show started, but and I don't even know if you remember this, because I'm sure playing shows, you guys probably met tons of bands and stuff like that. But I first met you guys. I first met you when I was, I want to say 15 or 16 years old.
Oh my God.
When you were in Edison Clio, which to this day is still in heavy rotation on my Spotify list. I was just texting my friend Nate. I was like, dude, Stephanie's going to be on the show. He's like, oh, you gotta send me that. What's that song that no regrets, I say? And I was like, yeah, dude, here, I got it. Let me send it to you. So,
oh my God.
I was 15, 16, and we were three kids in high school. We wanted to make music. We wanted to play in bands. Like, it was the only thing I think that I was really passionate about at the time. And then I was lucky enough to meet you and the guys in Edison Clio. And I just remember you were so incredibly nice and warm to us. And in my head, when I looked at you guys, I was like, superstars. I was like, these and maybe it was just because I was at the age that I was at, but watching you guys play, it was you were professional. You had your moves down. You were very much in time. You commanded the stage when you were singing. And then just seeing, I mean, I'm sure but you guys packed out crowds all over the place. So you were big musical heroes of mine, and as well as the other two members of my band. But then to have all of you just be so nice, you know what I mean? Because I can imagine you guys invited us onto some shows. I know I booked a lot of shows and you guys were kind enough to do them. And I can imagine, being in your mid 20s and 15-year-old kids around, you're like, get out of here. But you were never like that at all. And it just, I don't know, it really made a mark on me. And to be honest with you, I really think that's the reason that I pursued music as long as I did.
Wow.
I mean, like I said, I was telling you, I got tickets to Warped Tour specifically to come see you guys. I don't know if you remember, but the stage said, "This is the local stage."
Yes.
Behind it. And I was working for the radio station. I was there. I was like, okay, Fall Out Boy's here, who you played with. The Early November's here, who you played with. Motion City Soundtrack. I was like, I don't care. The first thing I'll see all that after. The first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to take pictures of Edison Clio. So, again, I just can't tell you how big my heart feels that you would take the time to hang out, and I'm super excited to talk about Desert Sharks. And you've been on Gotham, which was one of my favorite television shows. Watched it all the way through. So I've definitely got a lot that I want to talk to you about. But I wanted to start it. You're a fellow Michigander like me.
Yes. Represent.
Yeah. Where in Michigan, particular, are you from?
I'm from Saginaw, which I moved away. I went to Michigan State when I was 18. And so I lived in East Lansing for probably I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years. And that's when Edison Clio happened, was when we were all in college. But yeah, from Saginaw originally.
Yeah, that's actually where my grandmother is from. So I spent a lot of time as a kid up there, and then as I got older, I learned that the cool kids called it Saganasty. They'd be like, "Yeah, you're from Saganasty."
Saganasty, yeah, for sure. It was Flint Town and Saganasty. But I want to just address real quick, because you said so many kind things, and I just have to say thank you so much, and I'm really honored that we could be an impact for you in that way. Because for me, sorry, my cat has to be a part of this. For me, I feel like the bands that inspired me, that when I went to them and talked to them and they were cool and they were kind, like that was also a huge impact on me. So like for me, it's really important to, you know, talk to people. And I don't know. I don't think we ever thought of ourselves as being like superstars or whatever. We were just trying really, really hard to make it,
right,
quote unquote, which I think that like levels of success in my mind, I thought it meant certain things. And at this stage in life, I don't think the same way that I did. I'm going like way off on a tangent. I apologize, but
no, please.
But anyway, thank you for all your kind words, and I'm really grateful to be here and be a part of this. So.
No, it's and I definitely get because I was playing in bands well until I was almost 30, and then I met my wife and moved to Nashville, and I think now doing this podcast really like kind of fills that void. But as I got older, I kind of had, and I don't know if maybe it's because of my interaction with you guys and other bands like The Transfer back then, and like Half the Battle, and I still talk to Steve Tudor periodically, who was the singer for The Transfer for a long time. Yeah. But you guys were just so nice that I think as I kind of kept going and playing, I was like, I got to make sure that I'm nice to the people that we interact with, and looking back at it now, I know it's not like you guys were like Aerosmith or AC/DC or anything like that, but like, I don't know, you made a real impact. You made a real impact, and to this day, it's still music that like I listen to fondly. And when I listen to it, I remember I put on a show at a huge skating arena in Ann Arbor, and there was 2 stages on each side, and you guys were like, yeah, we'll do it. And I was like, oh my God, like, yes, like, you know what I mean? And I don't know. It was just, you guys gave us opportunities. You were always more than willing to do shows that we were putting on. And I don't know. It was whether you knew it or not, it was kind of like I aspired to be like that. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's what made me so happy too. When I found Desert Sharks, is I was like, oh my God, like the entire band was talented. And from what I understand, some of them still dabble and do different things, but like I think watching the band play, like you were the driving force. It was your voice that was carrying everything. And then you had Jared kind of running around just going crazy, but
injuring me half the time. But
well, I remember when Still Everything came out and he had that like scream on it, and I was like, yes. I was like, but to see, it just made my heart very warm to be like, that's so awesome that like all these years later, she's still using that gift. You know what I mean? And so that's a big reason I wanted to have you on, because I've gone through the Desert Sharks catalog, and I'm like, man, like it's a completely different sound, but it's unique, and it's got that same heartfeltness, I guess is the best way to say it, behind it, even though it's a completely different genre. And so I think that's why I found myself being like, I'm really enjoying listening to this. So I don't know. I'm just a fan, man. I just bowing. So
no, thank you. I mean, I definitely think that I'm gonna be making music the rest of my life. Whether or not anybody listens to it or not is, one thing, but it's something that is very much a part of me. And like, especially during like all of this, like with all this uncertainty and worry and stress and everything, it's like so deeply therapeutic. And it's been really weird being in quarantine and not, I live in New York City, I live in Brooklyn, and we usually practice in a practice space, which, in Michigan, we practice in practice spaces too, but you had a car and you could like drive to it and be isolated. Okay. And in the practice space in Michigan, we were the only ones using it. And the ones here, they're mostly shared because it's New York and it's expensive. So, we can't really go to a practice space. So I feel like I can't be loud. I feel like, we're like trying to figure out new ways to write together without playing at the same time. Because when you're on these like Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, it will cut out when you're trying to make music. But yeah. But basically, before I go off on more tangents, I think that like I will make music forever. And I'm actually hoping to, I'm going to say this now because maybe it'll like seal the deal because I'm saying it on your podcast. I really want to try to work on like solo things as well. Like I've never dabbled just writing by myself. I've always worked with other musicians, so who knows? Might as well.
Well, let me know, because I will very much. I would very much look forward to streaming that or buying that. Like I said, I'm just a fan, and that is one thing I did want to ask you, because I did see on your Instagram page that you guys were getting ready for like Zoom band practice, and I imagine that because I think people see it on TV, like Jimmy Fallon does stuff where it's like, here's a Zoom call, and we do Under Pressure by Bowie and Queen, but I don't think people realize that's like one person recording one track and then they send that video off. It's not all of them playing together. So I can just imagine it's got to be very, very challenging, especially for that writing process. Because I imagine you guys, I mean, you've been together since 2011, right? You guys found each other through Craigslist. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Which I don't think you can do anymore. Like, it was not like the Craigslist personals, or maybe it was, I don't even know, but it was like, you could go on there. There was like a music board, and I ended up answering my guitarist Sunny's ad, and she answered my drummer's ad, and we three started, and then we eventually got our other guitar player through yet another Craigslist ad. So everybody was always like, you Craigslist, really? I'm like, it worked out. It just, I moved to New York City. I didn't really know anybody. The people I did know or that I met in the music scene were so busy, and they were already involved in projects, and either weren't wanting to do another project, or, if they were going to, they weren't going to be able to devote as much time as I wanted. And so I just figured I'll just try this and see what happens. And, I think kind of like not approaching it from a place of like, this has to be the most amazing thing in the world. I was like, here's some women. We have the same taste in music. I had never worked with other women before in bands. I always played with guys, and I wanted to try something new, and it worked out. And also, this is my first band where I'm playing an instrument, and like I studied. I took piano lessons when I was a kid. I'm like, I studied piano. I didn't really. I took piano lessons when I was a kid, and I quit way before I should have. And I kick myself to this day, like, I could have been, but
could have been a contender.
I could have been a contender, but now I'm like, well, I understand like music theory to an extent. I have like a musical ear. I basically, when I joined this band, the four of us got together. We had two guitars, drums, and me singing. And I was like, they were like, should we add another person, bass player? And I was like, all right, since this is new and fresh and you guys don't know me and we don't have any expectations, I've always wanted to play bass because I always have. And I was like, if you guys are open to like me learning, I'll go buy a bass right now. And they were like, okay. And so I'm really grateful for this band that like they were patient. And I mean, like the stuff I was writing was like literally like 2 or 3 notes at first, because you got to start somewhere. And luckily time has passed and I've gotten a little bit better, but yeah, all that information from your Craigslist question. I'm sorry. I just keep going.
So this is exactly, you keep apologizing, but this is exactly like the stuff I want to hear, because you beat me to a question,
Okay.
So did a little research, and I found a NPR interview that you gave years and years and years ago, and they asked you, what instruments do you have at home? And you're like, of course I have a microphone, and then I have a keyboard and I have a tambourine. So one of my questions was going to be like, I know that for a long time you were a vocalist. How did you find your way into playing an instrument and things like that? So I mean, you are just a couple steps ahead of me. So no need to apologize at all.
That Michigan, like, oh, I'm sorry.
Right? Yeah, we're just very like, I didn't mean
to do that. Very polite. Oh,
right.
But yeah, no, I always like wanted to play guitar or bass or something else, because I don't know. I've enjoyed like being a vocalist on stage is really fun, and you have a lot of freedom to like run around and go crazy. And that's the one thing that's a little bit harder playing bass and singing at the same time is I'm kind of like stuck at the microphone a little bit more because I can't, but I love playing it. I pretty much have taught myself by ear. I'm using quarantine to like focus a little bit more on like understanding scales a little bit more. I've just never, like, even when I took piano growing up, I just don't really connect to the like, okay, C, D, E. Like I want to just play. Like I don't want to think about what note it's
just let
called.
me figure it out and tinker with it until I find what works.
Like I understand half steps, whole steps, and all the things. I just wanted to I want to make the melody that I hear in my head come out here, So yeah, I'm self-taught, and there's things that I, feel like I really need to learn how to do ABC, but I really, really love playing bass. I'm actually like, Fender is doing free classes right now. Did you know that? I did not know that. Yeah, Fender Play is like this is no way in like an ad for Fender Play.
Yeah, they don't pay me shit. So, but
if you want,
you're more than welcome to talk about it.
Right? They're doing 3 months free. So they have guitar, bass, and ukulele. So I've been doing guitar here and there just for fun, like playing Rolling Stones stuff and whatever. It's fun and it's free.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am very much the same way where I don't know what it is about my brain, but like reading music, I think I could get it if I like sat down and worked on it long enough, but my brain is just like, I don't care about this. Just like pick it up and play it. And it's funny that you said that the Rolling Stones, because now that I live in Nashville, I don't have a band. I do a lot of like home recordings. I've got probably like 15, 20 songs that I've just done here that no one will probably ever hear ever. But I've been playing with open tunings, and I was like, what did the Stones play in? So now I'm just at home and open G all the time, and it's just one finger all the way, up and down the neck. But it's fun, and it's cool to very much like you said, it's I don't know if maybe that's a Michigan thing too, where it's like, hey, I just want to work it, but like getting it in your hands and being like, I'm gonna figure this out for myself, and and I'm sure as a vocalist with the half step, whole steps, like the harmonies and the like the octaves and things like that, it's got to be easy to a degree to translate that when you're playing. So like, this is my note, here's the octave, things like that. Did you find that kind of translated pretty well for you when you were figuring it out?
Yeah. I think for me, the hardest part was just like muscle memory of like getting my hands to move faster. But I often, when we're writing and we're like playing and jamming together, sometimes like I'll just be like listening to like maybe my guitar player just wrote a riff and I'm like, okay, what would come after that? I will kind of sing to myself. Like, I feel like it should go up and it should whatever. And once I kind of hear that, then I find it on bass and I like figure it out. And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes I'm just playing my bass and like noodling around and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. But I do think that being a vocalist and spending a lot of time in my old bands, like focused on structure and focused on harmony and stuff like that, like has definitely made it easier for me to like come to another instrument and be like, okay, well, what's fun about bass is I'm with the rhythm section now. So I'm like, going with the drums and stuff and doing a little bit different. It's kind of like singing and playing bass is kind of like doing the like, pat your head and rub your stomach thing. It's like,
yep.
Guitar is like a little bit more straightforward, like staying with the melody, but the bass is keeping a rhythm and your vocal patterns. So a lot of it for me, like to this day still, like when we write stuff, I usually write my bass parts first with the band, and then I write my vocals to our like crappy recording that we do. And then I try to put the two together, and I have to like train my hands and my voice to like sync up together.
Right.
But yeah, it's fun. It's like challenging and fun, and I love it. I love playing bass. I love singing and playing bass. It's the best.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because right after Mercury's Shoes ended, which was my high school band and where I met you guys,
Mm-hmm.
I joined another band at the time that was called Sandbox Heroes, and they were like, I didn't have a band, and they were like, well, hey, like, we don't want you doing nothing. Like, do you want to come play with us and you can just be a third guitar player? And I was like, sure, I'll play whatever. And then we had a lineup change and the bass player left. And I was like, well, I mean, we don't need 3 guitar players. Like, let me learn how to play bass. So I started playing bass and it was the same thing. It's like, you don't realize that until you're in it, that it's like, oh, I'm the heartbeat, like me and the drums, I've got to follow them. And then when I got done with that band, I went to Robots in the Garden, where then I was just stuck on bass. So I was bass and vocals. So it was just like,
awesome.
Okay, now I got to figure out like how I'm going to do these fills and still keep the melody going. So I think you're right as far as the fact that, with guitar, not that guitar players have it easy, but
oh, not at all.
If you're doing rhythm guitar, it's very just like, here are the chords, you know what I mean? Where if you especially making, I think that's really the secret to the band sounding tight. And I think that's something that comes through on the Desert Sharks record, is that the bass and the drums are very much feeding off of each other. And you can tell it's just in the pocket the whole time. And for me, that's when I listen to music, even bands that sound like they're more like dissonant or like maybe spacey, you still have that, like at the center, there's that heartbeat. And I think that is really the sign of talented musicians, is can we be, can we play as fast as we want, or can we, be as kind of spacey and out there, but is that heartbeat still there? Are we in time? Are we kind of carrying that marching drum beat? You know what I mean? And I think that's something that comes through very clearly on especially this new record. I was playing it for my wife and I was like, these guys rip. I was like, this is awesome. So
yeah, it's really fun. I'm really, I'm proud of like the music I've created in my life, but this record was like the first thing that I was like, listen to this, like everybody listen. Like I was really proud of it. And I don't know if you've experienced this, like with like your recordings and stuff, you like love it. And then like time goes on and you're like, all right, like I'm ready for something new. Like,
yeah. Or you start dissecting it. So you're like, why did I do that fill now a year later when we play it?
Yes. Like, what if I had recorded this a little bit differently? But I am really proud of it. And I'm actually really excited. We have 3 new songs written, and we have been doing a cover at shows that we want to record. And we're still trying to write right now. We got asked to be part of a compilation that's supposed to come out sometime this summer. And initially it's like a band that we're friends with is putting it together. And I feel really bad. I know it's for charity, but I don't remember which one.
That's okay. If you send it to me, we'll throw it up in the show notes. You don't have to remember right now.
I'll let you know.
That's what show notes are for.
That's, my brain does not remember. But it's an exciting thing, and it's like with a lot of like local bands here that we're friends with when we play shows with. And at first, when the quarantine first started, we were like, oh, like we'll just write, and then this is going to be over, by June, and we'll go quick and record it, whatever. And now it's kind of shifted gears where they're like, well, we want to still do this. We still want to do it this summer. So they're asking bands to either do acoustic or just find ways to make electric work. So that's the other challenge is we're trying to write a song specifically for this compilation. And that's what I was doing before I talked to you. We were like trying to figure out, okay, normally when we're at a practice space, we can like jam it out and play together and mess with ideas and be like, oh, I really like what you did right there. Stay with that. And today we were like, we know we can't play at the same time. So we're kind of just like taking turns. Mm-hmm. And that still was kind of hard. So now they just texted me like a couple, we're going to just text ideas and stuff and whatever. But yeah, we're going to try to record it ourselves with like GarageBand and just hope it doesn't sound horrible. I mean, it's not going to sound like, studio quality, but it'll be very like of the quarantine times, like what we have available and what we can do.
Yeah. And I think, I think there's a level of authenticity to that, and like a specialness to it, because it's really like, that's like recording like a time capsule. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
can look back at that and be like, hey, this is when I couldn't leave my house. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And it also too, I was thinking, I don't know if you were a fan, but there was the Postal Service back in the day that was, the dude from Death Cab for Cutie, and I was just like, wow, like these guys were way ahead. They were ready for quarantine, like, because
Yeah.
they just mailed all their tracks back. Like one person would do something and they'd mail it over, and then mail it back. And I was like, man, they've been prepared. They better be cranking out like 6-7 records, because they've
No,
got the formula down.
yeah, they were totally ahead of their time. This is new. We're new, like everything's new for everybody. But I'm actually kind of excited just to see like what we can create under like limited resources and in a different circumstance. Like in a way, it's exciting that it's going to be super raw and imperfect, but mostly I'm just worried about time, because it's going to take a little bit more time to piece by piece versus like ironing it out at a practice space. But yeah, I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know.
Definitely do. And when it comes out, when the compilation comes out, I mean, definitely let us know, and we'll link it up. We'll link it up through the show page and make sure that people are checking it out. Yeah, it's, and that's another thing too, is like some of my favorite recordings, like, if you listen to the early Elliott Smith stuff or the Bon Iver stuff, like those songs don't sound like they have a super, and I think that's the special thing about them, is it's, they don't sound like they were done in a multi-million-dollar studio or anything like that, but it's the emotion and the like the feeling, the heart of the song that kind of carries it, and that almost makes up for, I don't know, I think sometimes unpolished is even better than taking something and being like, let me just make this sparkle, because you get more of the like the emotion and the feeling out of it.
For sure. I definitely think there's such a thing as being overproduced, and gonna like link back to Desert Sharks, our most current album. The sound engineer we worked with, his name's Jordan Lovelace. He's a friend of ours. He's a drummer in an amazing band called Tournament that you should check out. I don't know if they are officially have called it quits, because a lot of them are having children and stuff now, but they're incredible. Check them out. But he is like one of the first people I've worked with, like in a recording situation, that refuses to use auto-tune in any capacity. Like you can tell when something's auto-tuned, but I've definitely like, it's very normal in a studio for someone to like, oh, this is just a hair, let me just bump it a tiny bit. And he's like, nope, I won't do that. So I was like, all right, like I gotta just sing it as correct as I can, and that's it. But again, in some ways, like, and it's not perfect. It is what it is. I like it that it's not perfect. It's a little more genuine and raw, that maybe I didn't sing a note exactly the way I normally would have liked to, but yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting experience in that way, because we had recorded our, I don't know if you were gonna, I'm jumping ahead again.
No, I'm listening. Listening.
We recorded our first EP with Mike Porman, who, do you remember Hot Rod Circuit?
I do.
Yeah, so Mike was the drummer of Hot Rod Circuit, and we recorded our first EP with him just to have something, like, we're a brand new band in New York City. Who's going to book us unless they hear what we can do? So we did that EP in, I think, like in 2 days. It was over a weekend. And then our second EP we did with Converse Rubber Tracks, which is now gone. But for a brief time in Brooklyn, Converse built a recording studio, and bands could apply. And if you got chosen, you got 8 hours of studio time with an engineer, and you could do as many songs as you wanted, and they would like do a rough mix, and you took it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So our second EP, that's what we did. We did 3 songs in an 8 hours.
Was that like because I know you've got that 8 hours. So was that like a live session? Did you guys just all like play through live, or did you go through and do track by track?
We actually, as far as like instruments are concerned, we've only recorded live.
That's awesome.
Which in my old bands and like Edison Clio and Beekeeper, probably with Game Boy Girl too, we always tracked each instrument. And I think like, you know, we're not like anti-tracking each instrument. It's just been convenient to do live. And it also kind of, I feel like, captures our live sound a little bit more by not just being focused on like, we got to do this perfect, just like playing together and capturing that energy. So yeah, we tracked live, and then I think I sang each of the songs max 2 times through, and then I added harmonies, and then we were done. Okay. So it was really fast.
It's a power session.
Fast. It was a power session, and then we had a friend of ours do like a more proper mix and master. I'm going on all these tangents. And then we record with Mike Portman again for our third EP. But, you know, these were kind of like true studios. Not saying that Baby's Gold Dust Stadium was not a true studio, but it was in a basement of an apartment building. There were no windows, you know, like there was like dead rats in the wall. We had to like burn incense. It was, you know,
like a hostage situation.
Yeah, they're like, if it rains, be careful, you know, it might flood the basement. So if it was a rainy day, we'd all be nervous and like, oh, you know, was also like 10 guys practice space, and the like bathroom never had toilet paper, like one of those situations. So it was definitely a much more like raw experience, and this was the first album we did to tape. Okay. So, but I think all of those things served it in the end. Like I feel like we really like love what we've created in the past, but I think what we wanted was to be able to capture our live sound more and just be a little bit more raw and a little bit more loud, which can be tricky sometimes in the studio to try to get that. But
yeah, I feel hard, like especially when you're doing, because when you're playing live, and I mean, when you think about it, especially being from Michigan and you know, you think about places like Motown and things like that, like that's how it was done. It was just, hey, everybody plays. Yeah. And now, and I feel like even if you go back to those, like if you go back to like an old, like Otis Redding record, if you go back to, you know, an old like Smokey Robinson record, like there's an energy that you get where it's like, you can tell that these people are vibing off of each other, where multi-track recording is great. It's efficient, but a lot of the times it's like, if you have to do something 12 times to get that guitar part or that bass part right, like it loses that, you know, I feel like it you can definitely pick out, okay, the technical versus they were just playing this in the moment, and you can sometimes, not all the time, because I'm sure that there's, you know, there's musicians out there that have that like level of feel in everything that they play. But I think a lot of the times, especially in bands that are doing things for themselves mostly, that it's easy to kind of be like, oh, well, you could tell you did this track 12, 15 times and you're just focusing on getting it right. There's no emotion behind it. So and that makes sense in listening to, you know, listening to your latest record in the EPs is there's definitely that energy that kind of rolls through it, and knowing that now you guys have recorded it all playing live, I'm like, oh, that track's 110%. So
yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I definitely learned from experience, like with Edison Clio, the one full length that we did, This Is for the Blue Collars, we tried to do like pull out all the stops, like went to a studio in Miami, like the guy had recorded Newfound Glory and Dashboard Confessional, and we were like, oh, this is gonna be it, like this is like such a big thing. Ended up not being the experience that we thought we were going to get. Sorry, I have like something in my throat. I'm not emotional about it, I swear.
It was horrible.
I mean, it was definitely, I had to learn how to be like, hey, I can't even think of his name. My memory is seriously horrible. Can't think
it
of
was,
it.
I mean, 20 years ago. So, I mean.
Oh, God. No, not 20. Not that long. Maybe like.
This is for
let's
the
say
Blue
15.
Collars came out 15 years. Yeah, because I think it came out in 2005. I think that was the. So, yeah, 15 years. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I'm right there
yeah,
with you, though. I'm like, holy shit, that was
I know.
2005.
What is time?
I've got
understand.
a kid.
Yeah.
So luckily, I've gotten better looking as I've gotten older. So that's the one thing. Because if I had pictures of me from when I was in high school, like it's been worth the wait. But
we age like a fine wine.
Right.
Know?
Right. I got that Clooney thing going. So just keep going that way.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sorry. So you're in Miami. You're recording. This is for the Blue Collars, which I will say, regardless of the recording experience, that does hold up as. I mean, there's so many good songs on it. Like, I love that. I love that record. I also love Fragile Simplistic. I think both of them are, I mean, not even just for the time, but just in terms of, I think Fragile Simplistic is a great example of a band kind of like finding its sound now that I listen to it when I'm older. And then This is for the Blue Collars, I think was like, okay, this is it. Like this, we've got our sound. Here's the product. And I mean, I may be wrong about that, but that's just when I listen to them, I'm like.
For sure. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't listened to, I can't tell you the last time I listened to Fragile Simplistic. I probably should do it. It's like, I don't know. I'm weird like that. I'm like, sometimes it's fun to like go back and listen and reminisce. And sometimes I go back and I'm like really critical. I'm like, and other times I'm like, hey, we did a really good job. Like,
yeah.
I listened to, This is for the Blue Collars sometime within the last year, I hadn't listened to it in at least, I don't even know, 8 years. I don't know, a long time. And I was like scared and I listened to it. I was like, this is good. Like, I was like really proud. I was proud of us. But it was a weird experience because like going back to like what I was going to say about the sound engineer, he approached us to record us. So we thought, oh, if he's approaching us, he must have heard of us or he must really like our sound. Like he's going to make sure this is it. But I think that he might have approached bands to make money.
Right.
And which is like, as an adult, more of an adult, I guess, an older adult, I'm like, oh yeah, we can see how that works. But you know, we did all this pre-production work. We recorded all of our songs, like made like demos for him so that when we came in, he would know like we were like really serious. Like Edison Cloud was like I said, we were trying to make it. And he hadn't listened to it at all. Jesus. He didn't listen to anything. And he was chain smoking in the recording studio constantly. And I was like, I can't
have to sing, man.
So I had to ask him to please smoke outside. And it was like the biggest thing. He was so annoyed. And in that experience too, he would, when he was recording me on vocals, he would make me do like 20 takes. And he was so like shitty about it. Like he'd be like, that one sucked, do it again. Nope. Like he would just like, I would finish and he'd be like, that fucking sucked, do it again. And I was like, I don't know who you work with that motivates them, but it didn't motivate me. It just made me feel like shit. I was just like, cool. So, I mean, I'm happy with it. Like it is what it is. But when we first got it back to me, I could hear that the emotion that I wanted in there wasn't in there as fully as I wanted it to be. Cause I don't know what take it was. Maybe it was take 10 or whatever. And from that experience and from, you know, having more recording experiences since, usually your first, I'd say 2 to 3 takes are your best. And the more you like chip at it and work at it, you're going to just like kill it. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I had to learn the hard way that like, you don't always need to do 20 takes and it's okay if it's not perfect. And his approach was a little bit different. Also, side note, we like did all the drums, you know, we tracked each instrument, all the drums, did all the bass. We were there for 2 weeks. He told me I was going to get a week for vocals. I was like, wow, amazing. Did all this work. And then he's like, oh no, my tuner was incorrect. we got to retrack all the bass.
Oh my God.
And so then we had to start over like after 3 or 4 days. And instead of having a week to do, I don't know, did we do 13 songs? I don't even know. 12, 11? I don't even
say, you know what?
Should I Google it?
I was listening to it today. So in preparation, a lot of the times I like to go back and find stuff that I listened to when I was in high school. Cause my wife and I were 7 years apart. So I like to be like, hey, check this. This is what I was listening to when you were listening to Lil Jon.
Oh my, 12 songs. Got it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I did 12 songs in 2 days, which was like, it was brutal.
Yeah. And I wonder too, because I'm sure now, were you there for the like actual like the mixing of it, or did you guys just record everything, leave, and then get the copy of it?
We were not there for mixing, which we should have been, but we ran out of time.
Because I'm wondering if maybe he did composites, because I know a lot of people do that. They'll be like, sing this 20 times, sing this, full, and then we'll take, this line sounds good and that line sounds good. But I think with that,
I like, that's like kind of, I'm into that. Like when with our recordings, even with like Baby's Gold Dust Stadium, from those 2 or 3 takes, when we listen, I can say, hey, I really like my first take for this verse, but my second take on the second verse is way better. And that's fine. Like, that's cool. But he also like would be like, I mixed it. And we'd be like, no, you didn't.
Right. Go back.
You didn't do it. I don't know. That's happened more. Like, we've had that experience with Desert Sharks as well, where people have been like, it's mixed. And I'm like,
oh, good to go.
Actually, I can tell that this is not mixed at all. So I don't know. Music world is crazy.
Yeah, we paid this guy when we were in Robots, our first recording. It was in Westland, Michigan. And he was like, oh yeah, like, I record all these bands, and we'd love to have. And I was 21, 22. So we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we went and we paid him a bunch of money for 3 songs. We got those 3 songs and we were like, this sounds like it was recorded in a trash can. Like, it sounds awful. So, and engineers aren't like, well, you don't like my product, here's your money back. They're like, well, do what you want to do with them. Yep. So we ended up going somewhere and re-recording we actually recorded with Matt Halliday, who I believe played drums in Before I Go for a while back in the day.
Awesome.
So,
and were you happy with that recording? Did it turn out?
Oh yeah. He's always done, if he's listening, shout out to Matt Halliday, because he did the Robots record. He did some of the old like Sandbox Heroes, Rising Tide records. So he's an awesome dude, and for a home studio, I was just super, super happy with the quality. He's a good dude in general. So, and it's not like it was before. Like, you can have a home studio now and it can come out sounding, you know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, I think the Game Boy Girl, the song that we recorded, we definitely did in someone's basement. I don't remember who, but it turned out, and we were like, yeah, it's great. It's kind of a bummer that we never got to do more with that. But I've seen Jamie several times over the past few years, because I go to LA a lot for work, and he's still making music, and he's helping engineer podcasts and stuff like that too. So
that's awesome. Now, was John in Game Boy Girl too? Do you still talk to him at all?
I do.
He was always so quiet. Always just, I don't know if he's quiet really, but anytime I was like, he was just, hey, good to see you. Just super nice. Like,
John and I, my mom used to babysit us when we were little. So I've known him pretty much my whole life, but we didn't go to the same schools or anything. And he was a year younger than me. So we didn't really we knew each other as kids. We played together as kids. And then in high school, I would go see his ska band play. And
that makes sense. He looked like a guy that would be like
definitely in a ska band.
Yeah.
And then we at Edison Clio, I actually wasn't the original singer. They had 2 singers. They had 2 guys at first that they recorded a demo with, but they were like together for like 3 months or something. And then I answered an ad. Here we are again with these ads I answered an ad on, I think it might have been on the Plus Minus Michigan hardcore page. Do you remember that website? Yep. I think that's where I saw it, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go for it. But it was me, Jared, JP, Brian, and our old drummer Ryan Taucher, and we ended up having a disagreement, and he left the band. I can't remember if we kicked him out or if he left, but we're cool. We're still friends. And then I asked John to drum for us because he's always been such an amazing drummer. He's not really making music right now because he's like got a business and 2 children, but he's still like such an incredible musician. And we still talk to each other, not like all the time because, you know, families, but yeah, he's doing good.
Well, that's good. And this is one thing I did want to ask you. And I think, I mean, even coming to Desert Sharks and, you know, because you were talking about that recording experience, you know, on This Is for the Blue Collars versus like now you be like, I like this take. Let's keep that one. Let's do this one. You know, I didn't think about it when I was younger. And I think just maybe because I wasn't aware that like anything like that was, I mean, I just thought you guys rocked. And I was like, if you rocked, you fucking rocked, man. You know what I mean? But when I got older, I was kind of thinking like, and I hope this doesn't sound like misogynistic or anything like that, but like you were the only like quote unquote girl out of all of these bands that I remember. I know that there was some, like there was a band, Hope for August. They had a female, they had a female singer. And also, you know, being 16 in high school, like why I felt like I was very much in that world. I realized now that I was like in a small part of that. Like I wasn't in like the VFW halls or the, you know, the bars, you know, stuff like that. But I just remember being like what I thought, I was like, man, like, I don't remember like any other bands with any female singers or even, you know, like bass players or guitar players, or anything like that. And one thing I wanted to ask you, and again, I mean, even with Desert Sharks, I mean, was that back then or even now, was that a challenge for you? Do you find like, is it kind of like I mean, did you find it to be like a boys club at all? I mean, I just something that I've been thinking about. You know, because when you get older, you have that perspective, and I was just like, man, I wonder if that was a challenge at all.
For sure. I mean, it's funny. Like we do get asked the like girl in a band question, but I will say, like my personal experience of like being in Edison Clio versus playing in Desert Sharks now is night and day. Like there's still shit. Like there's still, you know, even this band, like when we first started and we would like go to play a show, you could just see the look on like people's faces. Like they totally didn't think we knew what we were doing and just underestimated everything. And then we would be like, you know, rock out. And then they'd be like, oh, you guys are so good for a girl. And you're like, oh, thank you.
How about we're just good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's weird. It's like, it's such like a, I'm going to go on so many tangents about this because I feel like there's a lot to say, but I'll rewind and talk about Edison Clio first. There wasn't a lot of representation when I was playing with the band. I knew I wanted to be in a band for many years because I was always like passionate about singing. I was like a musical theater kid. Like I was like, I love to sing. And then when I got involved and started going to like underground shows, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do with that. Like, I don't really want to be singing, you know, Oklahoma on stage. I want to like
Stephanie Gunther in Greece.
Yeah, exactly.
At the Saginaw Theater.
Yeah, I was like, no, I think I want to be in a band. And I had a lot of friends, a lot of male friends that were musicians, and nobody wanted to work with me because they were like, we know you can sing, but we don't really like female vocals. Like, it's just not, you know. I'll be like, okay. So that's honestly like the reason Edison Clio came to be is because I answered an ad and they were like, we don't care if it's a man or a woman. We just want a vocalist that like we jive with and we like what they can do. And they picked me. So it worked out. But there were times like going to play shows and stuff. I have this like one vivid memory, and I cannot remember the name of the venue. It's kind of like a state theater type thing, but I can't remember where it was, in Michigan. And we were going to the show and we were loading in, and I was trying to bring in gear, and the guy at the door wasn't going to let me in, and he would not let me in. And I was like, I'm in the band. And he was like, no merch girls, no girlfriends, no groupies. And I was like, I'm the fucking singer, bro. And he's like, and he turned to my male bandmates and was like, is she in the band? And they're like, yeah, dude. Like that's like kind of like gives you an example of like that time. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of it has changed. I feel like, at least like here in Brooklyn, there are so many like amazing women making, I honestly think, and I will say this, I think the best music is coming from women right now. Like, so heavy, so like rock and roll, such cool stuff. I will send you bands to listen to if you're interested. But
please do. Yeah.
There's definitely like more representation. It doesn't mean that you still don't get shit. And like, I had a sound guy in the middle of a show walk on stage and start messing with our amps because he said we were too loud. And I was so mad. I was just like, because it was a show with all women, and he was making everybody so low that you couldn't even hear guitars. Like, it was ridiculous. And I was so furious, and he tried to mess with our stuff, and I just turned it right back up. And I was like, I went up to him afterwards. I was like, if we had been men, would you have touched my amp? And he was like, what? I'm like, no, honestly, like, would you have even thought that it would be okay to walk on stage during someone's set and mess with their gear?
That always made me so mad.
Oh, it made me so mad. It made me so mad. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question really, but it basically, like, it was a boys' club for sure, especially in like the like kind of like I don't even know I guess we were poppy punk. I don't even know what our genre was, but like in the hardcore scene and stuff like that, there was not a lot of women.
No, and I think when I actually started thinking about it was, Brand New, especially at that time, was like a huge influence on me. And I was like, these guys, I mean, he's such a good writer, and he's deep and he's smart, and just seemed like he had a sensitivity to him. And then you find out that, years later, it's like he did. And I was like, man, like, being part of that, because I mean, I could see in Brooklyn and New York and places where, and I love Michigan, but I mean, culturally, there's a big difference between, hey, I live in Brooklyn, and then, I live in Saginaw or East Lansing,
right. Yeah.
East Lansing, maybe a little bit more because, it's a college town like Ann Arbor, things like that. But, is the people, the influence, like the mix of lifestyles and things like that, I'm sure it's much broader in New York City. And so I was just kind of thinking, I was like, man, it's just things that when I was at that age, I didn't realize. And then I got older and I was like, man, I bet that, could have been kind of rough. You know what I mean? At certain points.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was fine, like, playing with the guys. Like, that was not, I don't know. People are people. I'm comfortable, making music with people, but, even just like trying to get on a record label, we would get compared to bands that we didn't like. I remember we talked to like Equal Vision, and they were like, oh, well, we already tried to do a record with Rocking Horse Winter, and it didn't really like make us as much money as we hoped. So, and I was like,
we're not them.
Nothing like Rocking Horse Winter. Like, I don't know, a lot. It was frustrating. A lot of we got to play for a lot of cool labels, and we got told the same story, which was, we don't know how to market you. And
how about just as badass. That was really like, that was my thing. Like, I loved watching you play. Like, I have, and I'm sure you had other outfits, not even to like talk about it. And I think I would, but I remember you have you were a big fan of the tank tops or the shirt with like the short sleeves, and then you had the studded belt, and I was like, that chick is a badass. That's like what I just whenever I would watch you guys play, I was like, because again, I loved the band, and I thought, everybody, I mean, JP especially, he just always was like, give me a hug, be like, hey man, what's up? It's like so good to see you. And I was like, I don't know why you're talking to me, but but like watching you, I just always remember you had that stance where you were down holding the mic, and then that arm was just up, like when you were hitting those big notes. And I have those like in my head is like, these were epic moments in my life, like seeing these shows. And like, again, I was like, that's what I want. Like the way that this crowd is like looking at them, and the way that they're behind her specifically, I was like, I'm like, this is like, that's what I chased for a really long time. And so like, I don't know, I just was always like, man, like, especially when I got older, before we got back in touch, I was like, man, I just like, I really hope that she was given the respect that she was deserved, because again, like, to me, you were Almost Famous, when he's like, I'm a golden god. I have
never seen Almost Famous, and everybody gets so mad at me when I say that. And it's on my list. I promise I'll watch it.
I will listen to those bands if you watch that movie. We'll do a trade.
Deal.
I don't know. I just like, I don't know. It's just things that you're not aware of when you're in that age. Cause I was just, I was a portly little kid that just wanted to make music, you know what I mean? And then you think you get older and you're like, man, I'm sure that there was some issues and things like that. And I don't know, man. I will keep saying it. I think why I have you here, but you were just so badass. So it's just, I don't know.
I mean, it was like one of those things where it was like super awesome, because I would have women and girls, we were girls, I guess, we were young, come up to me and be like, oh, you inspired me I want to start playing music and whatever. But then I also had a lot of men feel like expressing that I was a marketing scheme, and like they didn't take me seriously, or they would criticize my appearance, nothing to do with my music or anything like that. I don't know. I think like some people feel threatened when there's change, and but I do feel like the diversity I've seen in music scenes is definitely being more embraced, and there's still a ways to go, of course, but we're on the path.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think with Desert Sharks, because like your picture up on I think it's either Spotify or your Facebook group, where you guys are all in like the gold paint. I was like, this again, it's the exact same thing. I looked at that, I was like, this is just badass. Like, this is just like I don't know. I don't know why that phrase keeps coming in, but I don't know, man. It's just very rarely, and I think I would say this aside just from speaking with you, but very rarely, at least for me personally, have I found an artist that I connected to in such a way, and then they've gone off and done other things, and I've had as much admiration for those other projects, if that makes sense. Like, because I think, you're like, this record or this band at this time in my life was very, this meant something, but then, they go do something else, and you're like, well, that's good, but it doesn't hold the candle like to this. And I think with your musical trajectory and the things that you've done, it's like Desert Sharks is just as mind-blowing again as Edison Clio was. It's just completely, it's two different sides of the coin. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
No, yeah. Thank you. You're the one putting out the music. It's not me. So
I mean, that means a lot, because it's I was in my early 20s when, God, how old was I? Was I 20? I don't even know. I was really young when Edison Clio was doing our thing, and I was learning as I went, and I guess I'm still learning as I go always, but I knew I was going to keep making music. I knew like it was pretty devastating when we broke up. Like, that was such a big part of my life, like such a it's weird how doing your project becomes so much of your identity or whatever. And like it was always like, oh, that's Stephanie from Edison Clio. And now like I've been in Desert Sharks way longer than I ever was in Edison Clio. And
9 years. Because the
9 years?
Well, the first, according to Spotify, like, the first release came out in 2011.
Yeah, so 9 years, which is insane. I don't understand how that happened, but it happened. But yeah, it's like as much as I love what I did with Edison Clio, like I don't want that to be the only thing that defines me musically, because I know that I'm capable of doing more. And playing with Desert Sharks has been so much fun, just to like work with women and have that be like a totally different experience, and to work with people in general this long, to like know your bandmates and know how we mesh. And I think this record, you know, you were talking about earlier, like, oh, when I heard this record, when I heard this for the Blue Collars, I could tell that was like your sound. This one, I feel like Baby's Gold Dust Stadium is our sound. Like we kind of like we're experimenting a little bit with like more garage heavy, a little bit more some surf elements, like stuff like that. A little more.
That's how I explained it to my wife. I was like, it's imagine like an all woman kind of like surf rock Ramones. That was like that's really the. And I was actually talking to my brother. I was like, dude, she's gonna be on the show. You got to check it out. And he's like, what do you mean by like surf rock? And I was like, think about like the soundtrack to an Elvis movie, but if they were like real drunk and smoking cigs and like just you know, smashing bottles on the ground. Like that's what that record feels like to me. And it's I really enjoy the production value. I think the recording quality is really good, and the songs are just really, really well written, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like we're actually like moving towards getting like our new stuff is pretty heavy. Like we definitely still have some punk elements in there. But when we put Baby's Gold Dust Stadium out, Bandcamp featured it on something, and they called us gloom punk. And I thought that was like such a perfect, because every worst question ever is like, what does your band sound like? And you're like, I don't know. Like another guy said we were like Black Sabbath meets Ramones, and I was like, oh, I'll take that. Like it's definitely got punk elements, but it's got a little bit heavier, a little bit grungier, I guess. And the new stuff we're writing feels even more like a little bit more droney and a little bit heavier. I don't know. I'm really excited to see. Of course, I'm like, let's do another full length. Let's do it. And they're like, let's do an EP. And I'm like, no. I don't know. We'll see. I guess it depends on what we can write in quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see though, like because you've always struck me, because you wrote all the lyrics in Edison Clio, right? And again, I was listening to This Is for the Blue Collars. I had to, you know, I'm trying not to go out of the house, but I had to go to the grocery store, and I was like, well, if I'm in the car, like, let me. And so I was listening, and like one thing that really stands out to me on that record, as opposed to Fragile Simplistic, is the harmonies on Fragile Simplistic are good as well, but you could tell, maybe I'm wrong, but I got the sense that the placement and the way that they were accented on This Is for the Blue Collars was thought like it was the structure was worked on a little bit more. And I think that comes through where it's like, oh, like they went through and she was like, okay, this is where I want it. This is how this is going to build. And so that's always been something that I've admired about you a lot, is just not only as a vocalist, but as a lyricist. Like Ludacris, I'm just going to start referring to you as a lyricist.
I like it.
Now, are you writing the lyrics for Desert Sharks on your own, or is it a collaboration? Or
no, I write all the lyrics, but I feel like with this band, or at this stage in my life, I've been like open to experimenting with them a little bit more. Like, for example, we have a song on the record called Dating question mark, dating, I guess. And that one, we knew it was like right after my guitarist Sunny broke up with her girlfriend. And it wasn't a very healthy relationship. It was like one of those where like they had broken up years before, got back together, broke up again. And we were all like, okay, don't go back. Like, she's not good.
Are you sensing a pattern at this point?
And the way we approached that song, I was like, all right, write a guitar riff that represents how you feel about that situation. And that's when she wrote like such like a heavy riff. And I said, okay, I want to write about the end of your relationship. Like, this is not going to be about me. But I'll write from my perspective of like me telling you not to go back to her. But send me an email with all the things that she did that like, because she would tell me these stories. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, there's just way too many to like try to go into, but let's just say she was not the most loving person.
Right. Not the most well-balanced.
Oh my God. And so Sunny sent me an email with like, you know, I was sick and she refused to give me NyQuil. And like,
Jesus
like
Christ.
all this like list of things. And so I took from that, and that's how I wrote the lyrics, was like about that situation. I always am curious. I'm like, I wonder if she has listened to that song and knows about it. I mean, like, no ill will to this person. She's not like evil, but we're pretty like honest about like, yeah, that's about her.
Yeah, my wife likes a song that I wrote that we used to do with robots, and she's like, it gets stuck in my head all the time. She asked me the other day, like, you know, obviously, like, if you listen to the lyrics, it's definitely like a breakup song. But she was like, who is this about? And do you know if they ever like heard it? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I stopped talking to them. That's the reason that I wrote the song. I have no idea if they listen to it. And she's so I love my wife, Kara, to death with me. And she's so much better with our daughter. But for me, she has got tolerance for me to be sick for one day. If I'm sick for one day, she'll bring me NyQuil. She'll be like, what do you need? Day 2, she's like, you're fine. Like, suck it up, get your own. She's like, oh, feel good. She's like, you're just whining. Stop it. So, but luckily with Millie, she's just, anytime that little baby doesn't feel good, she just loves the snuggles. I think if I could get on her lap and just snuggle her, she'd have a little more patience for me, but I don't think it works that way.
Yeah.
Just
like, that makes me more impatient. You never know.
Well, I don't know. So let me ask you this. And I definitely don't mean to get political, because I know not everybody is like, hey, let me like voice my political standings and things like that. But I did want to ask you, because you're in Brooklyn right now, right? New York is like ground zero for coronavirus and COVID, and I have to say, New York has done like an amazing job at being like, you know, we're going to stay home. We're going to, you know what I mean? Like taking it very seriously. And, you know, I'm in Nashville now as well, which down in the South, there's a lot of people that are just like, it's a Republican hoax and I'm not wearing a mask. But the reason I wanted to ask you, and I thought about this when I was kind of going through some of the questions I wanted to ask and things like that, we're both from Michigan now, and we're living in, you know, just opposite ends of home. What do you think about all the protests and the crazy stuff going on? I mean, is it, because I watch it and I get infuriated. I'm like, I want to like jump out of my skin.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's like hard for me to get my words out, because I have like, I want to say so many things. It's like careless and irresponsible and just so selfish to not consider what the impact on other people you have. Like, you're fighting to get a haircut, like, fucking let your hair grow, grab a pair of scissors. Like, you want to endanger other people for your own well-being. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think people are being babies, because it's like,
Oh yeah.
Oh, do you have a yard? Do you have a home? Do you have a car? I don't have any of those things. I'm in a
Right.
tiny ass apartment in New York City where we are stacked on top of each other. And like I have friends who have gotten coronavirus and it's not a pleasant experience. Like, yes, some people have really minor symptoms, but a lot of people don't. And it's not like this virus discriminates. It will kill anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm fine getting political about it. I think it's so fucking stupid. I think that like our I feel like capitalism is not working, and I don't really have the solution or the answer for that, but it's like I feel like people are more concerned about the economy than they are for lives, and that like I understand that there are things that have to stay in motion. We have to keep like food chain supply and all that. Like I'm not saying, you know, not, for nobody to work, but like when like I'm a vegetarian, like when I'm hearing about like pig farmers having to kill all these excess animals for no
Mm-hmm.
good reason other than like they can't
They don't
slaughter
have
them
room for
or
them.
they don't have room. It's just like so devastating to me. And like,
Yeah, well, and especially like when we're talking about when you said the food shortage and the meat shortage and capitalism isn't working. Like there's three major like meat distributors, and
mhm,
they own it's kind of like Comcast. So like
mhm,
Comcast owns this area, like Cox or AT&T owns this area. That's how it's broken up. So there's three big companies and they own all of the meat packing and processing plants, and two of them aren't even based in the United States. So
right.
it's I think really what this has done, because when they were like, we can't get our seeds to plant our crops, I was like, on the Oregon Trail, man, nobody was like, let me go to Walmart and get my seeds. Like, you get the fruit and then get the seeds out of it. And they're like, we can't go fishing. It's like, no, you just can't take out, your fancy boat. You know what I mean? You could still
Right.
bank fish, and you know, you can
Yeah.
catch 30 bluegill and feed your family standing on the bank. And also when they're bitching about seeds, the ground was frozen and it was snowing. So it's like, what are you like? I don't know.
It's hard because it's like I everybody has different experiences, right? Like everybody has different perspectives. Everybody has the right to express those. But like when you are endangering other humans recklessly, like even today I went to the grocery store and I saw maybe like I'm like how many people did I see on my walk? Maybe like 20 people, maybe more. At least like 6 of them were not wearing masks. And I was just like,
Oh,
it
dude, come
makes
to
me,
Tennessee. Come to
it,
Tennessee. There's like 6 people wearing masks.
it's so, I, I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like we're about to have a resurgence because, I think people are uncomfortable and a lot of people are not okay exploring being uncomfortable. And like, of course I don't want to be stuck at home and I wish I was doing other things and I wish I could go to the movies and a restaurant and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But actually personally doing any of those things right now sounds terrifying because I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get anybody else sick. Like bottom line, like I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get anybody else
Yep.
sick, period. And I don't understand why that concept is so difficult. I think maybe like people who have cars and things are like I don't know. I'm living such a different experience being a little more isolated
Mm-hmm.
and like having to, I don't have, like I said, I don't have outdoor space. I go outside when I can, but I have to like be like, oh, are there, it's a nice day out. Is there too many people out? There's not that much room on the
Well, I saw
sidewalk.
your
Like,
I saw your Instagram story where you're like, it's beautiful. I need a yard because it was
yeah.
just 80 degrees out, and I mean, I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing that really, really bothers me because originally that protest was supposed to be, we're all going to go. It was called Operation Gridlock, and they were going to stay in their cars and just drive around and like honk and stuff like that. And then you've got all these like they took our germs with their AR-15s or
I was
whatever.
gonna
It's
say
like it's I don't know. It's
it's scary. It's frightening. I mean, like
I can't
everything.
imagine being a lawmaker. Like if you were walking into your job and there was just like 100 dudes with AR-15s on their chest, like I'd be like, nope, sick day. I'm not going in. That law's not getting passed today.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, like, I don't know. It's a weird time we live in, and I'm really nervous for the next election. Honestly, like.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to brace myself because
Yeah.
I mean is I will so I haven't. It's funny because I haven't gotten super like into my political views on the show, but I will say that I was a Bernie bro all the way through. I was like, I love Bernie because he's
I
been.
love Bernie too.
I mean, it was just like if only there was one candidate who said the same thing like forever and doesn't have any sexual assault charges. Like,
I know.
wouldn't that be a great? Oh, we had one, and now he's not. Oh, okay, so
He's
it's
too
just
progressive, you can't have democratic socialism, even though, Social Security is
the
exactly that.
fire department,
Yeah, exactly.
the police.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
that was kind of, heartbreaking when, I mean, I still like will back Bernie for sure. And I back Elizabeth Warren too. It's just like, I don't know. I guess we're going to see what happens. I don't know. I don't want to say one way or the other. I don't want to be like, I'm hopeless, because of course, like, you have to still try and push for what you believe, but
well, I really think the way that the administration now has been handling things, if there was ever anything that may sway somebody who was on the fence, hopefully this will be it. I will say the 2016 election, I was like, there's no way in hell. And I wasn't like emotionally prepared for what happened.
I don't think
like,
anybody
no.
was. I don't think anybody was. It was like a really shocking blow. And it definitely opened my eyes to like a side of the world that I was definitely living in a privilege bubble, like not realizing how institutionalized racism is in this country. And like, like the alt-right or whatever the fuck, like that to me is just like so gross and embarrassing. And I have, whatever, I'll talk about it. They're not going to watch this. I have Trump supporters in my family who are like really aggressive about it. And I can't, early on I tried to have conversations, like civil conversations, and it just would not, it wasn't happening. So,
well, and that's the thing about debates. It's like no one's mind has ever actually been changed. You know what I mean? So
right. Because everybody is so wrapped up in the identity of like Democrat versus Republican. That's like our side versus your side.
It's too tribal.
Yeah, it's so like ego based, and there is still like good work happening and good people in the world, but like it's definitely, I will say, like, this pandemic is like scary and everything that's going on. I'm hoping it gives people, like, personally, I will say it has given me a lot of time to like work on being present and like focusing on right now and thinking about the preciousness of the earth and like, taking care of
and especially when you see that it's like healing itself right now. It's like there's a hole over the ozone, or there's a hole in the ozone over, I want to say like Antarctica or somewhere. I'm not a smart man, but I read it. It was there, and it's closed itself, because there's so much less pollution. And those, did you see the pictures from India where the kids in India could finally see the sky?
Oh, yeah. Where they could see the mountains?
Yeah. And yeah, because it's all the there's so much pollution there that it's always just like smog and gray, and so everybody's like, "Holy shit, this is beautiful!" Like if we just stopped, So
that's what I'm scared about. Like I feel like we are being forced to stop and look, and we're getting like nature's like showing, like you know, hey, like, we're going to continue with that, with or without you. Like,
yeah,
this
get
is
on board.
I'm hoping it's a wake up call. I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
Well, and I mean, I think the other thing for me too was like, I had to realize that like, not everybody who may have voted for Trump is like, you know, a misogynist or racist or, you know what I mean? There's plenty of reasons I'm sure people have not to like Hillary Clinton and things like that. But when you see, I think it's the loudest voices in the room, and the loudest voices in the room always tend to be those, you know, Obama needs to show his birth certificate. He's not American. You know what I mean? It's just, and like we have a family friend who was like telling me that, oh, Obama went to school as a foreign exchange student, and it was funded by funded by I forget. What I know is I Snopesed it, and I was like, nope, none of that's true. Like, you know what I mean?
So much misinformation, and that's the thing is like I said, there's people in my family that I love dearly. Like, they are great people. And I think, like, how could you, being such a like wonderful, compassionate human being, not look at like things like the children at the border, or like, you know, like encouraging like Nazis and like
find people on both sides.
The environment. Like, or like, you know, grabbing women by the pussy. Like, how do you get past that?
And that's what I told our family friend. I was like, you know, that's the thing that really, like, what if it was your daughter, or what if it was your wife? And he said, his response was, well, he didn't say that he did. He said that if he wanted to, they would let him. And I'm like, oh, my bad. Right. My bad. You're right. You know?
Oh, okay. Got it. And that's just, you know, something you say. That's his locker room talk, you know?
Yeah. And the thing that really gets me too is that I'm someone who believes that like a person has to have humility, you know? So, and I think that's the one thing that drives me absolutely insane about Trump, is that it would never be, I could have done a better job. It was always, we're tremendous, and it was done bigly and perfectly. Like, you know, like it's always, you know, everything is. Did you see when he brought out the Corona test swab, and then he had the Q-tip? It's like, looks like very similar to this. It's not the same, but they look very, like, he literally pulled a Q-tip out of his coat, like inside coat pocket.
No, God.
Ridiculous. I mean, he's good for a laugh. If you can, you know, like step back and be like, oh, the world's melting, you know, just turn that off for a second.
It's just so ego-driven, fear-based, like, bullshit. Like, yeah. I don't know.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, that's, you know, that's one of the, because I mean, like I say, you live in like the cultural epicenter, you know, some would say, of the United States. I mean, possibly even, you know, the free world. I mean, there's, you know, so many different groups of people and race and religion and ethnicity in New York City, and I mean, in Brooklyn, you know, in Brooklyn alone, you know what I mean? So it's like, it just kind of interests me to, you know, from someone who has, again, seen both sides of the coin. Like, you know, my grandfather worked at Delphi in Saginaw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his retired from there. You know, they lived there forever until they retired, and then they moved to Florida. But you know, to see that world, and then to be in such a diverse world now, just, you know, part of me was hoping you were going to be like, I think they're doing a great job, liberate Michigan. I was like, oh Stephanie, it took me by surprise.
Oh God, no, I mean, like, I think like for a lot of people, like, I think the only thing I can way to put it in perspective is to think about like the people I know, and the people I know that are pro Trump are people who are very like isolated in a bubble of like no diversity. Like, so I think that there's a lot of fear-based, it's all fear of the unknown things. And like, I absolutely love being in a city that I've met people from so many different walks of life, like so many, like, you know, yeah, it's like a huge melting pot. And to me, that's what makes it so much more interesting and beautiful. And like, it's just like, we're all people. We're people. We're people. Like, what is this? There's all these like divides that are, to me, seem really unnecessary. And why are we like treating, I can't even like, this is, I'm gonna like spiral, but it's just, I'm just like,
I didn't mean to flip the switch. I'm sorry.
No, it's just like so frustrating. I was talking with my friend about this the other day, because she's a woman of color, and like after like the recent like shootings and stuff like that, just like how stressful it is for her to just be in her own skin. And like, I just wish people had a little bit more empathy and like could just like, I tried to talk to a family member about the children at the border, and this is someone that like loves children. I was like, what about the children at the border? And they were like, well, their country should take care of them. It's their country's responsible. And I'm like, they're fleeing their country because their country is corrupt and they are dying and they are getting killed. And dying and getting killed is the same thing. But like, I was like,
well, I mean, you could die of natural causes.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Right. You're right. That's true. You're right. They're not the same thing. They're related. But
right.
Yeah.
Distant cousins.
But I'm like, I know for a fact if somehow you were teleported to that scene, there is no way that you would not have compassion for those people. And if you were teleported to that scene and you did not have compassion, I don't want to talk to you. Like,
well, and
goodbye.
I think the other thing for me that drives me absolutely crazy, especially when that was going on, it was like, you know, like you said, their country should take care of them, and
our country doesn't take care of our people. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, I feel like people forget how America started. You know what I mean? Right. America wasn't like, hey, that place looks lovely. I'm just going to go. Let's get on a boat. It's like, no, there's some terrible shit happening where I live, and people trying to make me do things that I shouldn't have to do. So let me get on this, you know, let me go start a new life here. And it's like, now that we've established it, it's like, stay out. Nobody, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just,
it's a crazy world. It's a crazy time that we live in. And like, I know a lot of these things that we're facing, they're not necessarily new, but they're definitely like exposed more to everybody because we have the internet and we can see everything. And like, I'm very curious. There. Yeah, that's the thing. I just hope that, I don't know, like, I can't predict the future. Nobody knows how long the quarantine's going to be, but my hope is that when we come out of it, there'll be good that comes from it, that like maybe we'll take some things a little more seriously and like care for each other a little bit more. But I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you know, like my in-laws live, 10 minutes from us, and just like I just can't wait to like hug somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like they've come over, Millie's only 18 months, but they've come over and stood on the other side of the fence and watched her. She learned how to climb up and go down the slide in the backyard. But they just want to pick her up and love on her. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, like, like I want to hug you. I want you to hug her. But like, also my wife's grandmother lives with them. She's 70 plus. So it's like if heaven forbid one of us had it, you know what I mean, or she had it, and then you take that home. So
it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk. It's really testing human nature. Like I'm really lucky that I'm quarantined with my boyfriend. I have another human I can like go through this with, and thank God for like FaceTime and stuff, so I can talk to my family. But I have friends that are by themselves and they're like super, super isolated, and it's really hard. It's really hard. Like we as humans like need each other. Like we're we're social creatures. Yeah, I was supposed to go for a walk with my friend today. I was gonna have my first distance hangout, like social distanced hangout. And unfortunately she had to take her cat to the emergency vet, which I'm like, I feel really bad. I hope he's okay. But yeah, that's like, I'm trying to find little ways here and there where I can like see people. We can't obviously hug each other, but like we can go for a walk. And like I saw my bandmate earlier, and she was like, if you want to come have a drink on our roof, we can sit 6 feet apart. And I'm like, yes, I will do that. I am down.
Yeah, we did dinner with the in-laws, and they have a big deck on the back of their house, and so we took 3 tables, one in the middle, all the food went there, and then each side of the family got their own table. So we'd go up and then the kid got to swing on the swing set in the backyard and stuff. It's just hard, man, because it's like I feel like I'm trying to be responsible, but while trying to be responsible, I feel like an asshole because everyone's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, no, it really is. Like, it's a big deal. And like, I understand that you feel like that, but like, I'm not allowed to look at social media now 2 hours before I go to bed. That's a rule that we instituted in my house because people post fake stuff and I'm like, nope. And I'm fact checking on like Facebook and Twitter. I'm like, nope, that's not true. That's not true.
It's frustrating.
And I wasn't sleeping. I was like having nightmares, and my wife was like, no social media 2 hours before you go to sleep. You can look at Instagram, and that's about it. So
I mean, like, I think like it's finding that delicate balance of like being involved to an extent. Like you're not going to just like sit back and be like, well, peace out world. But also you have to protect yourself. Like you have to protect your mental health. And like, honestly, I was reading the news every single day because I don't have cable. We just do like, like a Fire Stick or whatever. So I was like
Netflix and stuff.
Yeah, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Go, all that jazz. And so I'd start my day reading the news, or if I didn't read it in the morning, I'd read it before bed. And it got to be like I don't think I read some headlines, but I haven't like dove in deep in like a week because I just mentally couldn't. Like, I don't know. I think like right now, obviously our focus is like making sure like we're safe, that our needs are met, like we have food and whatever. But I also feel like it's like we have to do what feels good and like what feels healthy. And if that means you have to not go on social media 2 hours before bed, do it. Like you want to remain, strong. And
yeah, I was having a real hard, like I wasn't sleeping. And if I was sleeping, I was like having like terrible dreams and then waking up and, and I'm someone that like, I don't normally, I'm pretty easygoing. I don't deal with like a lot of like depression or anxiety normally, but this situation has like, I'm like, why the hell has my eye been twitching for 3 weeks? And it's like, because you're just reading sad shit all day, dude. Like that's all you're doing. I will say though, and maybe you can relate to this, having your boyfriend there, but my wife and I were talking about the other day. We were like, how lucky are we that like we love each other and like we care about each other and like we get along really well? Because can you imagine like being stuck in the house with someone that you're like, I can't, like, I'm sure that this quarantine was a relationship test to a lot of people, and a lot of people probably failed,
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah, my boyfriend's friend was like literally like broke up with his girlfriend he was living with like the day before quarantine or something. I don't know, and they're trapped together. I have no idea how they're doing, but like they like broke up and then got quarantined. So
one of them isn't doing very well.
Oh God, and like in a New York apartment too. So
yeah,
best of luck. I have no idea, but yeah.
I think you're right. I think it really has kind of put like, that's one of those things. Like I love my wife and she's my best friend and we get along, but like, I don't think I ever would have appreciated that the way that I do without going through this situation with her, to be like, oh, I could literally be locked in the same, space with you for months and no one's dead. You know what I mean? So that's good.
My boyfriend and I had like a moment, like a trial like that. Like, I don't remember, not like pandemic trial, but I remember like earlier on in our relationship, we, on like Christmas Day, we had like a Christmas, just the two of us. And I made us some food that like, I didn't realize that like the cream cheese was expired or something. And we both got food poisoning at the same time in a tiny New York apartment. And we were both like, we were dying. And we like, after that, we were like, oh my God, we had food poisoning together. Like it brought us really close. We were like, oh, we've been through
it's like people who go through war together. You know what I mean?
Yes, we had our food poisoning war. But yeah, no, I feel like quarantine is like, it's like testing everybody. And I'm working still. Are you working at all?
Yep.
Or
yeah, I've been working from home for the last 3 years with what I do. But so I was kind of, prepared for that, but Kara works downtown Nashville, and she has still had to go in. She's driving in, and she works with people who have substance abuse issues. So, that's not one of those things you can be like, well, just go home and we'll work on that from home. You know what I mean? So she's still been going in. And that's another reason that I've been so like, no, like if we're going to do something, we're going to social distance. And it's because, you don't know who's coming into that facility, and they're doing temperature checks and stuff like that. But if you're asymptomatic, you're not running a fever or nothing like that. You don't know. So I don't see why it's so hard to just be cautious. Yeah.
I don't think it's that hard.
Well, I will say, I am very grateful for, I think this podcast has really helped me not go crazy, because I'm like getting to talk to people. Like my friend Jashar, who was on last week, him and his wife just gave birth to twins, and she got COVID in the hospital giving birth to their twins. So I mean, she's doing okay. She she just had a little cough, but like wasn't anything crazy. Like she's one of those people who seem to be handling it okay.
Wow.
But they basically told him, hey, if she's got it, you most likely have got it. So don't leave. So they've got a boy and a girl, newborn twins, are quarantined, so they can't go anywhere. They can't have, people come and see the baby and stuff like that. So it's just like, it really,
that is so intense.
Yeah. It's just, it makes you grateful for, if you're healthy and have avoided getting sick. And
Absolutely.
I don't know if I was trying to set up an interview with you on a Saturday any other time, or Sunday any other time, you might be playing a show, or it
would be tricky. No, it's true. It's like, I will say that like, if I look for the positives of what has happened in this, I definitely have like connected with people, and so many people like from my past, and like I've been able to like connect with other people in a new way, and that's been really cool and really fun, and like people are still being really creative, and sorry, I just got distracted. My cat is being crazy. People are still doing projects and stuff like that, like going to do this comp and all those things. It's like there's still things, people are still finding a way to connect and to grow, but yeah, we'll see. It's crazy how it's been like 2 months. I think March 13th is when, I don't even know what day is it today?
Today is the 17th of May.
Okay, so it's been a little over 2 months since we started quarantine, and like I remember like at first I was like, I'm so ambitious. I've still done some things, like I was doing some home improvement stuff before I talked to you, but I was like, oh, quarantine. And now, and like you like think what quarantine is, like, oh, 2 weeks have gone by, 3 weeks have gone by, and then like another day happens and you're just like, wow, we're still doing this. Like
day 60 plus, like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's a lot to process. It's like,
that is one of the things that it kind of stuck. I saw something online that did make me laugh. It said, if your excuse has always been you don't have the time and you're still not doing it, you're just lazy. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's also tricky too. Like, I feel like, I think about that too, because what I have learned is I'm a lot more like my father than I thought. Cause my dad is like such a, like, needs to have a project, needs to be like, he needs to be useful. And when I have free time, sometimes I feel guilty when I want to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to like grapple with those feelings. And like, I've also, been like, had my mind open to the idea of that, like, we've been sold through capitalism that our value is productivity. And, but we just have inherent value regardless of what we make,
right.
And like, so trying to find the balance of like, but now I have some free time. I really do want to do ABC. And also rest. Like, if you need to rest. I think, again, that's like, I've just been like, what feels good in the moment? If I'm like sitting on the couch and I'm like, I'm going to go crazy, I cannot sit here and watch another Netflix, whatever the hell, then I'm like, all right, let me do something. Let me play on my keyboard for a little bit. Like, I'm trying to be in the moment and do what I need in the moment. And like, I don't think there's like, this is like unprecedented. So there's no like right or wrong way to approach your quarantine. It's like, do what
works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See, I'm the opposite. I'm an introvert at heart, but I don't mind extroverted situations. Like, I'm friendly. I like being around people, but if I have my choice, I'm cool with I think that's why I like doing the podcast so much, because it's still, it's still a very introverted. I've got like one person that I get to sit and talk with, but I'm still just sitting and talking. So
yeah, and it's like social, but you're also in your comfortable space.
I'm being lazy.
It's a lazy socialism. Socialism.
Yeah, like, you're like, if I watch one more Netflix thing, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm like, I could watch like one or two more. So yeah, my wife stopped letting me go grocery shopping because I was buying ice cream every time. And so when you're on quarantine, you're just watching Netflix and eating ice cream. Like,
I mean,
so
if it feels good, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because like, I'm working full time, and some of my friends my coworkers have been furloughed, so they're like getting unemployment, and they're going to get rehired as soon as we can rehire them. But like, just like having such different experiences of like, I feel like I've been wrestling with feelings of gratitude that I have a job and I have a paycheck, and like, obviously, like, yes, I need that, but also frustration that I'm already like trapped in my space, and now I'm trapped even further in like, okay, in these hours I'm on my laptop, I have my phone, like da, 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 da. Yeah. Like, even during this time, my time is not my own fully, and it's a weird situation. And I know like a lot of my friends who work from home, my friends who like work from home already, they're fine. They're like, I've been doing this for years, I'm good. But like, all my friends that are now working from home, they feel the same way. They're like, our jobs have been busier. Mm-hmm. Like, I've definitely been like, we're working in a different capacity because I usually work face to face with people, but like, it's just been a really weird experience.
Yeah, and like, I'm right there with you. Like, I could be one of those people who is, luckily the company that I work for, we moved home again a little over 3 years ago. But the company that I work for, with having my daughter, they didn't wait for like the government to come out with anything. They came out with their own leave program. So if you had a kid and you couldn't get your backup babysitter of the daycare closed or something like that, then they did 8 weeks paid for that time and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm there with you, because it's like, I have a lot to be very grateful for, and it's balancing that, like, hey, I've got all of these like wonderful things, and my situation could be so much worse, but then at the same time I've still got like, and especially like working in an apartment, like where we live, I have an office, and when I'm not working, that door is closed. That's that's work. You know what I mean? But if I, was in an apartment and I would always be like, tomorrow I gotta sit in that chair and I gotta sign it. It would just be like running in my head.
I literally I bought myself a lap desk, and different days of the week I go sit in different parts of the apartment because I'm just like, it's weird. It's like your space that was such your place of like away from work and this is where I can decompress. Now it's like, oh, I have to do both in the same space. It's weird. It's
hard. A lot of people think that it's like, oh, I'm just done with work, and you close it and then you're home. But
it's way, before you check your email more and I don't know.
Before I worked from home, I had a 45-minute drive into my same job. We were just in a building. And so that drive home was always like, I listen to a podcast, I listen to some music. I got the window down. So when I come home, I'm like, I'm a normal human being. And now it's, I get done, I walk out and I'm like, it's whatever stress that day. There's no it takes a minute to be able to adjust back to it. So
I used to walk to and from work.
But I mean, we've gone now. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Sorry. I have bad internet. I was just going to say I used to walk to and from work, and that was like my decompress time. And now it's like, I guess I'll walk into the other room and decompress. I don't know.
The bathroom looks lovely today.
Right. Right.
Well, I did want to ask you to kind of close things out because we're almost 2 hours in. So I really appreciate you. Yeah. I really appreciate you spending time and hanging out. And it's been so good just to be able to catch up and finally be able to kind of, I mean, I wish I was emotionally astute enough when I was younger to be like, you guys are making a giant impact on me. But, so it's cool to get the opportunity as an adult to be like, hey, thank you for what you did and what you're continuing to do. And, I think if you do something that touches somebody, it's important that that your work is doing that. So I just, again, just want to say thank you for being so badass. And
thank you.
To kind of close this out. No, I mean, you ever want to come back on the show? I'm more than happy to. I mean, I'll bump somebody another week if you ever want to come back. So, but I did want to ask, again, right now for musicians and things like that, not being able to play shows, not being able to, sell their merch and be gigging out, that can make it hard for people who rely on that income and things like that. And I did just want to ask, if anybody listening, Desert Sharks is on Spotify, Apple Music, you can find them on all the streaming platforms. But if somebody wants to, support you guys, put money right into your pocket to help with, in recording costs or things like that, what's the best way that somebody can do that who may be listening?
There's a couple ways. If you want to buy our record directly from our record label, that is helpful. They are called Substitute Scene Records, and they're amazing. We love Emily, our record label. And it's just substitutescene.com. Bandcamp, we have Desert Sharks. It's just desertsharks.bandcamp.com. They have been doing, once a month, they've been doing a deal where one day of the month they don't charge any of their fees. So normally they take 1% of every sale. And I think the next one is June 6th. Here comes my cat. I'm not.
What's up, buddy?
This is Simon. He's got to be involved. I will definitely let you know. I can't remember, but I want to say it's June 6th. We usually post about it because that's the best time to buy from us is on one of those days, because then we get to keep 100%. And we have t-shirts and we have vinyl and we have cassettes and things like that. And if you don't have money, but you want to support, honestly, if you just play our music on Spotify, that is really, really helpful. It's just like the way the world works. Plays do matter. And the more plays you get, the more times we get suggested to other people and things like that. So, yeah. And thank you for taking the time to check it out.
No, I will put, so, in the show notes, we'll put in the links for the record label. We'll put in the Bandcamp links, make sure everything is there. And then on the website, we'll also make sure that we put that there as well. And then we'll also make sure that we link up like your Spotify, Facebook page, all that on all of our pages too. So, one thing, because I just realized this and I could not let you go. So you were on Gotham, and I was like, oh man, I have to ask about this, and I hope you've got just a couple minutes. But
sure.
I started that show and I was like, this is amazing, because it's like a complete, like, I'm a little nerdy, so I was like, oh, this is gonna be, because it was a complete like reimagining, and I really enjoyed the show all the way through. And then I found out that in an episode you were playing bass. And I was like, oh my God, like, how did I miss that? I've watched that episode like 3 times.
It was literally like, it's like 2 seconds of like, yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. How does that happen? Because you're officially, I mean, you're in the DC universe now. You're, you're a Batman. You could be in Batman versus Superman. So the next one.
Yeah, I'm ready. I don't even know. I think like a friend of the band, I don't know where they saw it, but they saw somewhere that Gotham was looking for female musicians, or like a band or something like that for the show. And they sent us the link and we applied and we got it. The only thing was, sadly, the timeline of it, if you've never like been on a set, I didn't know this, but like they will say, oh, we're probably going to shoot Wednesday, but it might happen Thursday, but it might happen Friday. Like it changes the week of. And the very first time they were meeting, I could not find anybody to cover me at work. Like literally no one could cover me. And so I could not go. And so I did not get to take the singer role. We had our friend do it instead. So actually both me and Sunny, my one guitar player, we could not, because the schedule is so like last minute. The episode I was on, they happened to be shooting on a Friday, and the girl who normally was the bass player wasn't available. And so I got to go in and I was there for like probably 11 hours, and I'm in the episode for like 2 seconds. But it was really fun. It was really fun. And it was really cool to see like what the set was like and how they film it. I will tell you, my bass did not actually have like an input jack. It was a hole. Like there was nothing. I just had to stick the cord into it. And they have you one time play it along to the recording, but the rest of the time you're just pretending so that they can hear the actors. And so a lot of it was me just like pretending to play and like people pretending to dance.
See, I couldn't do it because I'd be doing like ridiculous fills that didn't matter.
Oh my God. I like made a point to learn the song. It was Love Like Blood by Killing Joke. And my bandmates that had been on it, they were like, don't learn the song. And I was like, how do I not learn the song? And
right, you want to look legit.
They're like, seriously. And the studio was like very like, we need to make sure this is like, you have to be a true musician. Like we were hired as musicians, not as extras. Mm-hmm. So we actually got a better rate than the extras did. But
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't matter because they showed us for like 2 seconds. But hey, whatever. It was really fun. I would definitely do it again if my schedule permitted. I would 100%. It was really fun. And my hair was crazy. Did you get to see my hairdo?
Yeah, I did. I saw so this is what I'll say. One thing that I liked about that show, and I think the reason I was so happy to see that you were on it, was they did I think, and it was very intentional. I mean, from what I understand, but they really focused on having a lot of like empowered female characters, whether they were, you know, good guys or, you know, villains, anything like that. And a lot of those female characters really drove the story, especially into the later seasons. So I was like, okay, like the show's about, you know, there's a bunch of badass women on the show. And then you've got Stephanie coming in to play bass and she's a badass. I was like, it just, I don't know. I was like that felt like the right fit. I was like, if there was anybody that I could think of who should be doing that show and playing, especially because I don't know if you're familiar with the storyline, but the bar that you were playing in, why am I forgetting her name? She's a blonde hair lady on that show, but she basically ends up like killing the mob bosses that own that place. And then it's like her club, so that she got it from being like, I'm not fucking with anybody. You know what I mean? So
yep. I can't think of her name either right now, but she was so nice. I will say that. She was so friendly. A+ to her. She was really
yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep you a little bit longer for that, but I was like, I was so interested. And then I was like, I can't hang up without getting that answer.
My one last little note was like the craziest part. I had to go in for a fitting and they were like, oh, let's, you know, they like figure out what you're going to wear. And they were like, let's put Jada's earrings on her. And I was like, what? And so I don't know if they were like hers that she owned or like they were like ones that maybe she had worn in a different. I wore Jada's earrings, which whatever that means. So I was like, never got to see her or meet her, but I felt like I had that like microscopic connection for a brief moment. So.
I'm a huge fan of The Office, like to the point. Yeah. I feel we actually did Office trivia, me and my wife, and she got to see some of the other people who are really into The Office, which makes me now appear more normal. So I feel like that helped a little bit. But like, that's like if they were ever like, you know, you get to wear Jim's jacket or like you can sit here, I'd be like, oh my God, like I would totally like, cool. I'd freak out. So, I mean, I don't know, that's odd. And she was so good on that show too. I mean, again, I don't know how much you follow it, but like I was like,
I didn't really watch it. I didn't really watch
it's okay.
There's too many shows in the world. I can't keep up.
There really is.
Everything. So
and I've just reverted now to like, I've just reverted to true crime on Netflix now. I'm like, with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, at least this is like craziness that's normal to me. So,
normalized craziness, yeah.
Right. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. Please, guys, DesertSharks.bandcamp, buy a shirt, buy a vinyl. They have cassettes. Like, where can you get a cassette anymore? I mean, just for the nostalgia, that's awesome. Please check it out. Baby's Gold, Death Stadium, brand new record. Stream it on Spotify, Apple Music. Stephanie Gunther, thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much for coming in. Will you hang for just a minute after we end? Yes. But I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you for checking out the show, and we will see you next week.